Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And today, well, I have Tom Campbell with me. Always love when I have Tom. Always a great show. So we're going to look because, well, we sort of discussed this before we started the show. We're having some weather issues here in Toronto. I'm not sure if that's the right wording, but I think it's the right wording. So we're technically in spring, but the last few days have not been very spring-like at all. However, since it's spring always makes us think of, new beginnings, change, all the things that we want to get excited about. Except, I think the big theme that I keep seeing is we're often sabotaging that change, because even though it's really something we want to grow up, we want to move towards love, we want change, we want to do the things that will help us, but then we get stuck in the same patterns, or we were talking about it's the fear of the unknown and the fear of the known. It's like, okay, well, I want this, but what if it goes back? What if it's the same as the last time? If you're in a relationship, what if the relationship fails and maybe it's not the person I want? We sabotage it. We go through all these things and we look at things and we're much more critical prior to going in it if we're going to sabotage it. And it's just that fear. It's just fear again coming up. But maybe we can talk about some of the ways to sort of move through that fear so that we can get the change that we want. Because so many of us, especially now, the last few years have been, pretty brutal. So we're wanting to make changes. We want to move forward. And it's time to move forward. We just sabotage ourselves.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, Tom.
Okay, Laurie. Yeah, it is an interesting topic, and it happens. It's not just for one reason. I think there's several things that tend to come together to make us reticent to embrace change. And one of them, as you say, one of the most obvious ones is a fear, of the unknown, fear of what might happen. Well, this could be really good, but it could not be too. Mm-hmm. And then that negative side of us starts thinking about all the ways that it could not be good. And then pretty soon, we have talked ourselves out of doing whatever it is that we'd like to do. So part of it is that fear of the unknown. The other part is the fear of letting go of something that works. If you're in something and, well, it's not really what I want, and it's not really what, I'd like to be doing, or it's not the way I'd like to be, but I'm getting by. It's working. I'm not really terribly depressed either, So you have to give something up, to go forward into something different. So I think we're fearful on both ends. We're fear to give up something that, even if it's not exactly what we want, it's sort of working for us. We're getting by. And might we move into something that would be worse? So that's just fear of change, fear of striking out and doing new things. And I think a lot of that comes from a lack of confidence. We're not really confident about us and our ability to get out there and, make good things happen. We just don't feel confident that we can do that. And that comes from us not really liking ourselves all that much, not thinking so much of ourselves. We're aware of our limitations. We're aware of our problems. We're aware of our history of problems. We've had trouble with relationships. We've had trouble with coworkers. We've had trouble with relatives, whatever it is. And we kind of think about that, and that makes us feel insecure about our ability to go out and make something good happen. So it's kind of the cascading of all of those things together. But nothing really grows or changes or becomes or improves itself if you don't like yourself. If you are negative about who you are and what you are and your abilities and your ability to not only love and give, but your lovability, score, right? How lovable are you? How much do people like you? And, so this idea of being very positive about things, we sometimes call that bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You're just, let's go get them, and you're all full of confidence that you're going to go out and do something. Well, we tend to have that when we're 15, 16, right? We feel like we know everything and we're going to go out and conquer the world. And we feel that way. And then we grab hold of that world, and then we find out, oh, this is harder than I thought. This is tougher and more difficult, and that didn't work out so well. And then we start thinking, well, I'm not really very good at this, or I don't seem to have what it takes. I'm not very good at relationships, and the confidence kind of run downhill, and we begin to accept the fear that we have as just the way we are, rather than see that fear as something that needs to be overcome. We see it as that's just the way we are. And we start looking for situations that work for us just the way we are. And then we end up with a life of struggle. And we're struggling because the whole point is we're supposed to become more than just what we are. We're supposed to grow. We are supposed to change. And if we're just trying to hang in there and be as we are without changing and find an environment that suits us, well, I got to find the right person that just happens to suit me, rather than I need to grow and change and whatever, such that I'm suitable to almost everybody. It's those attitudes. So we start off bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then life kind of slaps us around a little bit, and we start to withdraw and get a little uncertain and a little more fearful. And if that process continues, then we just keep withdrawing like into our cocoon. We just keep putting up bigger walls. We just keep shrinking back into a smaller and smaller space where we're comfortable. And pretty soon, we're not happy anymore. We are depressed. We don't like our life. But now we just live in this little cocoon where we've kind of withdrawn from a very harsh and maybe not very comforting life. And we're afraid to venture out. So now we're like turtles. We shrink into our shell, right? And we're a little afraid to stick our head out because something might bite it off. And that's then the fear. So it's kind of this cycle of not feeling good enough, not feeling confident enough, worrying. We focus on the negative, worrying about what could go wrong. Instead of looking at all the things that need to change in a positive way, we focus on all the things that could happen that would hurt and that we wouldn't like. And, well, okay, maybe that new relationship is what I should work for, but it probably just turn out to be bad like the last one, and we're walking around, in our shell, in our walls, in our defensive castles, and we get into a rut where we're getting by, and we just stay there because it's better than not getting by. Again, that's a negative.
I think there's one other thing is the New Age dilemma where they say if it's too hard, then it's not worth it. If it's too difficult, then you're not supposed to be doing that. It's too difficult. So that means the universe is telling you not to go there. It's too difficult. So that's the other one, is that people listen to that. People are so confused about all the things that are in our heads all the time. And, we want to grow. And so we think, oh, well, that new age, that they must know the secret. That was, that was so powerful. It was so enlightening, but it really was all about greed and stuff. But anyway, but yeah, I think a lot of people also get stuck on this, because I had this wonderful woman who's, decided to completely change her life, and she's gone back to school, and she wants to be a great she wants to be a great mom, stay-at-home mom, but she also wants to further herself. And then she was like, oh, but it's so hard. And what if I'm not there for my kids while I'm learning? And it's like, but that's the beauty, because you're actually showing them that you can do more, like showing them that there's more, and that you want to change. Like, it's perfect, because that's exactly you're inspiring them, even if they're too young at this point to realize it. You're still inspiring them that, we're not just one thing. We're not just a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, you can be a super mom, and that's awesome. But there's more. But so because it becomes more difficult, because something might trip them up, or they're worrying about their kids, or they're worrying, like, we get caught up in all of these fears that stop us from, really achieving those things that we want to achieve. And almost giving up. She was almost ready to give up. It's like, oh no, don't do that. This is perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's the negative thinking, that it's, you look at the downside and look at the problems. Well, if I do this, then it's going to hurt my children, but it doesn't have to hurt your children, as you say. The point is, children are very adaptable, as are most people. If you really care about them, if those children are really important to you, then you are going to be in a way that is good for them, no matter what you have to do. Even if you're a single parent and have to work 2 jobs, you're going to be there for them. They will feel the warmth. They will feel the love, even if they don't spend as much time with you as they'd like. And it'll be a good relationship. They'll see a mom that's out there doing everything they can for them because she loves them, and they'll see the positive in it because you are in a positive space. But if you get in a negative space where, I'm going to cause them problems, and this is going to be, and what if, this happens and that happens, then what they see, again, no matter what you do, is something failing, something negative, something that isn't working right. And it's not so much what you do as it is what you are. If you are a giving, loving parent, and you really care about your children, then your children can understand that life has some severe requirements sometimes, and sometimes they're going to have to pitch in and help. And that's good for them, helps them grow up, helps them see bigger pictures. But if you're more self-centered and it's all about you, not about your kids, then it doesn't really matter whether you stay home with them or whether you don't stay home with them. You're going to cause them problems and difficulties. So it's not what you do, it's what you are. If you're a positive person that cares and loves and gives, and you're doing the best you can, then people around you will see that, accept that, look, appreciate that, look up to you for that. But if you're a sad sack and you're always thinking of the problems and you're always worried, oh, what if my children grow up to be drug addicts and do this and do that? And you constantly have this negative viewpoint about the terrible things that could happen, then basically that's self-centered. You see, that's not about other. That's about self. Oh, I won't be happy if my children do this, and I won't like this, and I won't like them doing that. It's basically now you're self-centered and you need your children to be the way you want them to be. You see? So even if you stay home, that's not going to work well. it's not going to really help. So yes, it does matter to some extent what we do, and how, and the time that we have to do it. But for the most part, parenting is about getting your own head straight, getting your own self positive, and not being self-centered, and then just be natural. So if you want that job and you say, well, that job's really important to me, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time away from the kids, but it's important to me, and the kids will just have to, get by because that job's important to me. Well, that's self-centered, and the kids will feel like they've been left and abandoned. But if it's like, I really love my kids and I'd really love to be there, but in order to make ends meet, I have to work 2 jobs, they'll understand that, and they won't be, it won't hurt them. They'll feel very positive about their situation, that they've got a person that is willing to work so hard, for them. So it's not really the time. Time is important, but it's you. Are you positive? Are you caring? Why do you do what you do? More than what you do. You see, that's the thing. If what you do is you have to work, but the love and the caring is still there, they'll feel it. Absolutely. Or if the love and caring's not there, they won't feel it, even if you stay with them every minute of the day. You see, so that's why it's more important about who you are than it is about what you do. Now, if you have a positive feeling about who you are, well, I'll make it. I'll get by. We'll get by. It'll be fine. And if you have that positive attitude and you care about other people, not just yourself, then everything will be fine. You'll get by and they'll get by and everything will work out positively. So our problem is, again, we talked about it last time, is being positive, having this positive attitude. And with that, you have to truly care about others. And it's not, often what people do who are really more self-motivated and self-centered than they should be, they tend to justify everything. Oh, well, I'll need this job in order to give my kids, the designer clothes they want, and I'll need this and I'll need that. So they're justifying why they do, why they do the things they want to do. And of course, kids and everybody else sees that. They know that, you can't trick other people. We're all connected, conscious to conscious. We understand what drives people and who they are very easily. So when you try to justify, here's what I want to do now, how can I justify it? So I'll make up a good story that then makes me feel good about what it is I'm doing. You see, that's all self-centeredness. That's not what we're talking about. And you can justify away almost anything if you're self-centered. So that's the first thing. You have to grow up, care, really care about other people. And if you really care about other people, the other people will like you. The other people will appreciate you. The other people will feel it, whether you have to, whether you only see them, a little bit or you see them a lot. And that's true about friends, friends that you have that move away and you don't see them, but maybe once a year, or maybe you Zoom with them every once in a while. If you really care about them, it doesn't matter that you only see them once in a while. You're still close. The caring's still there. The love is still there. You have that connection. And the fact that you don't see them as much as you used to doesn't hurt the relationship at all because it's real. On the other hand, if they're just friends just because they're friends, and it's not so much that you really care about them, you mostly care about yourself, but it's nice to have people to talk to, if you're in that sort of mode, then people who move away or they separate, well, they're just gone. You don't think about them anymore because it really was about you anyway. It wasn't about them. So if you can find the growth that lets you get rid of the fear and the negativity, lets you be positive, and lets you truly care about others, the rest of your life will just fall in place. Whatever it is you have to do, however many jobs you have to work, whatever, whether you bring back a fat salary or a little salary won't make any difference. So that's the point. Now, yes, there are limits to that. You have to bring home some salary or nobody eats, But getting past just basic survival, the only thing that's really important in relationship is how much you care. That's the love. That's the connection with other people. That's not self-focused. So that's the way you make a positive life. And if you're in that positive mode, then you tend to be that bright-eyed and bushy-tailed person in that new job, new opportunity. Great. And you'll just know that you'll do something with that. And you know that if that doesn't work out, there'll be something else even better, because you think positively. I'll meet people, or I'll run into situations, or I'll get another offer someplace else just because of, going here first, and it'll all work out. It'll all work out fine. And when you have that positive attitude, that's what happens. It always works out fine. It's just, you may go to a job and then you say, and it turns out the boss is really ugly, but you run into somebody else who knows somebody else who introduces you to this person who has your dream job. But you wouldn't have gotten there if you hadn't been, if you hadn't have made the changes. So change happens. And if you're in a positive frame of mind, most of that change will always lead you to a better place. And then you have confidence. Then you don't mind changing. Changing is something you look forward to rather than something you dread. So that's kind of where we need to go. But I'd really like to get a better job, but I'd have to change. Or I'd really like a better relationship, but and there's always a but. There's always a justification of why you don't have to get out there and interact with that world. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if you are self-centered, you realize you're self-centered, you're aware that it's all about you, and you're just looking for other people who fit you well enough that you can still be self-centered and they don't mind, and you have that kind of a mindset, then just the opposite's going to be true. You're always going to be glum. You're always going to be in a situation that you see wanting, that you see is dysfunctional, that isn't working right. And everything will have limitations. And it doesn't matter who you connect with, how many people you see, or whether this is your 10th or your 100th relationship, it just won't work out. And it doesn't work out because relationships and connections, even jobs, really work well when you think about how much can I give. And they really don't work very well when you think, how much can I get? It's just like that. Jobs are the same way, with relationships. You go to a job and how much can I give here? What can I do? How can I improve what's going on? And if you have that attitude, you'll do well. If you have that attitude of, this isn't much, this is not a very good job, and I'll just get by. I'll do what I have to do to get paid. There's no sense doing any more. You have that job. What's all about you? Mm-hmm. And if it's all about you, you'll just be a very mediocre person that will probably be looked over when it comes time for promotions and everything else. And then you'll complain about it. Oh, I was there 5 years longer than that guy that got the promotion. But that's because it's just about you. So no matter what you're doing in a job, in a relationship, just your neighbors, anything, any way that you interact in life, if you're positive and caring, and if you're not coming from a self-centered space, you're coming from a, how can I help? What can I do? How can I be of service? Then you'll find life gets good. Everything works better. It's just getting rid of that negativity, becoming positive, and getting rid of that self-centeredness and becoming other-centered. And those things go together. Because once you're other-centered, you feel more positive. Because you get your positivity, you get your satisfaction out of being useful and being helpful, making other people feel good, making other people be successful. That makes you feel good because it's not about you, it's about others. So in that case, it's really hard to be in a situation where you don't feel good. You see, that puts you in basically control of your life because all you have to do is care about others and your life is great. As opposed to being self-centered and your life is always going to be a challenge and it's always going to be full of things that you don't like. You see, so it's like one of them can't help but be really good and the other one can't help but be really bad. So, it's like, what kind of life do you want? If you want the one that's really good, then you have to grow up, become positive, care about other people, and not be thinking, well, what's in it for me? How can I maximize what I get in this? How can I get what I want? How can I make my kids be the way I want them to be? How can I make my wife or my husband be the way I want them to be? How can I make my dog and my cat, be the way I want them to be? How can I make people at work and my boss, how can I make all those people act and be and think the way I want them to act, be, and think? Well, that's somebody that's all about you. You want to rearrange the world to suit you because you are important and nobody else really is that important. They're only important to you in as much as they give you what you want. In as much as they don't give you what you want, then they're frustrating. And they're wrong, and they just don't see they just don't understand, and they don't appreciate you, and you have all this negative stuff going on. So you see, just a simple thing is how self-centered you are will determine whether your life is full of joy and peace and happiness and satisfaction, or whether it's full of struggle and pain and getting by and settling in fear. So it's just the way the world works. It's just the way we are. So if you're self-centered, you're going to live in a world of struggle. And life is always going to be just marginally acceptable. It's just, there's no other way to say that. So if you care about others and are positive, you can't help but be happy. Happiness will just find you. But if you just pretend that you care about others, that won't work. If you just go out and are really just as helpful as you can be to everybody because you think that's, people will like you if you do that, that won't work. Because it's not really about them, it's really about you. You want to be liked. Therefore, I'm going to be nice because I want to be liked. Well, it's still about you. And people know that. You can't fake it. You have to actually be it. So, I don't know. It's to me, that's fairly clear. Now, it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. It's okay, here I am. I'm negative. I worry about all sorts of things. I'm in a life where, everything kind of sucks a little bit. I'm getting by, but it's not really what I want. Okay, how do you begin to change that? Well, you find your fears. We've talked about that. You look at your fear. What is it that annoys me? What is it that upsets me? What is it that gives me stress? Every time I feel something negative, I feel disappointed. I feel frightened. I don't want to, I'm afraid to change. All those things that are negative, as soon as you feel them, notice them and say, I don't want to be like that. I'm only going to be positive. I'm not going to be negative. And that negativity comes from fear. Why am I negative about that? Why does that bother me? Well, because I'm insecure and I need praise. If I don't get praise, I feel terrible. I'm awful. Praise is something that that massages my ego into feeling good about itself. Oh, if I don't get services, then my spouse must not really love me because they didn't do this and didn't do that and forgot to take out the garbage. And, if they really love me, they do all those things. Well, that's you thinking that love is getting services because other people care about you. It makes you feel special that you get services. Or maybe you're into getting gifts or money. They spend money on you. Oh, they spend a lot of money on me. They must really like me. So this people send you flowers or buy you gifts, then makes you really feel happy. Mm-hmm. Well, you see, that's you being insecure, needing your ego massaged to make you feel good about you. I don't feel good about me, but if people buy me expensive gifts or give me services, then I feel good because they must really like me. Well, now you're a very needy person. What do we call people like that? They're high maintenance, right? They're difficult to live with because they need so much all the time. Well, it's not that they really need all that. It's just that they want it because they don't feel good about themselves. And that's their way of dealing with their fear, is they can ignore the fear as long as they're getting presents and services. You see? So turn it around. Give presents and give services, and be happy when you make other people happy. And if you do that, well, I will do this. And I'll not only do it, not with my teeth grit and doing it because I'm pushing myself because I think it's the right thing, but because I want to. I want to please. I want to make other people happy. And we tend to, in our culture, get to the point we see somebody who wants to please and we say, oh, that's a problem. They've got an issue, they want to please people. Well, no, not necessarily. Now, if they're just doing that in order to get their ego strokes, yes, it's a problem. If they're doing that just because that's the way they are, it's wonderful. And there's a difference. One of them is really giving, and the other one is acting like you're giving in order to get the strokes. There's two different things there. And this idea that you brought up about if it's too hard, don't do it. There is some cases where that applies, don't keep beating your head against the wall. If you want to walk, you want to go outside, but you can't find a door or a window. So you just bang up against the wall. Stop it. That's not going to help. You have to know when to quit. So you stop doing that and you find some other way, take another course. Well, yes, that's smart. But this idea that if it's hard, then you quit. Well, you never grow up if you have that attitude. If you can't do things that are hard, then you're not going to learn. Learning's hard. Mm-hmm. I don't know about your experience with school, but I've noticed that as I've gone through school, every time I get done with a particular subject, I feel like I'm ready to start it. Mm-hmm. Every time I get done, with another math class or, whatever it is, I get done with the course, I feel like I'm almost to the point where I'm ready to start that course. But I struggle through the course because it's just things I don't know. And trying to learn new things is not all that easy. So you struggle and you struggle and you struggle and you learn. But if you say, gee, this is hard, I don't want to do that because it's hard, you're just limiting yourself. A lot of things are hard. Growing up is hard. Becoming love is hard. Getting rid of fear is hard. And if you don't want to do hard things, you'll never accomplish any of those kind of things. So yes, you have to do things that are hard, and you have to take the long view. Many of us have grown to have such short attention spans that if we do something, and if in a week it doesn't make a big difference, well, we give up. Mm-hmm. It's too hard, won't happen, won't go there, we quit. You have to look at the long view. What is the old thing in the, a journey of 1,000 miles, starts with a single step, right? You just have to keep taking steps. And if it doesn't work out, you just have to keep after it because you know it's the right direction. Now, in that case, you're not banging your head against the wall. You're doing something hard, and you're going to stick with it and work at it and continue to improve yourself until what's hard becomes easy. Life is hard. If you don't do things that are hard, you might as well dig a hole and crawl in it, and put a lid on top because life is hard.
If we were more involved and we weren't just still in kindergarten, it might be easier. We are still in kindergarten and we do need to work hard. It's like relationships too. It's like, oh, it's too hard. Really? But relationships are messy. They're always messy. We just have to keep at it. Yes, love is, it's not always the answer, but if love is there and you're both caring and loving and kind to one another, it still is messy. We're two people having, our own fears brought into everything. So until we clear up our fears, and that's not really happening in kindergarten, that doesn't happen until much later. So we're still growing. We still have so much to grow.
Yeah, well, a lot of people take that thing, it's not what I want.
Yeah.
And I can't get it to be the way I want it. And that's too hard because I can't make it be the way I want it. I can't make my children or my spouse or whatever be the way I want them. It's just too hard. Well, it's not that it's too hard. It's that you should stop trying to make them the way you want them. Accept them. See, you're trying to do something that is dysfunctional. You're trying to change them. That's a dysfunctional thing. You can't just change people. People don't have little dials and knobs on them that you can twist and just change them. And if you loved me, you'd change. That isn't helpful. It's not about other people. It's got to be about you. So yes, that's too hard, but that's your feedback. When things are wrong and you're going in the wrong direction, it doesn't work. And that's your feedback. It just doesn't work. So if you say, I'm unhappy, I'm not, life is not good, I'm not having fun here. Well, it's not because life is unfair, and it's not because other people are just wrong and aren't the way they're supposed to be. It's because you are negative and you are self-centered and you need everybody else to change to be the way you want. And that's not going to happen. So you're going to stay miserable. Oh, you may find, some happiness that lasts a few weeks or a few months or something, where both people are acting, they're trying to be nice, even though they're maybe not so nice. They're trying to be caring. Well, that works for a while, but acting isn't long term. Acting's a short term thing. You can't act through your whole life. You have to be who you are. So if you're unhappy with life, change yourself. You don't have to change your life. And again, it doesn't matter whether that, you're in a situation where you work 2 jobs or don't have to work at all. That's not the point. The outside world and those other people in that outside world do not determine your happiness. Only you determine your happiness, your attitude. And if you are not self-focused and you do care about others, you are really kind, not just acting kind, then your life will become happy. It'll be fine. And you'll say, well, if I'm just kind, people will abuse me. People will take advantage of my kindness. Everybody's going to ask me for a loan, and if I'm kind. And well, that's not the case. Sure, somebody may take advantage of your kindness. Well, that's all right. That's not so bad. You can be taken advantage of sometime, and it's not a downer at all. It's not so bad that people sometimes will take advantage of you, but if people take too much advantage of you, it becomes difficult for you, then that's you not being smart. I'm not saying you have to be stupid. I'm saying you have to be sincere and kind and care. But if there's somebody that's got their hooks into you and are just trying to use you, well, then you need to say no. You need to turn around and let that go. Maybe you even need to be forceful. You see, so I'm not talking about being kind and caring about other people. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'll be a doormat. Everybody will wipe their feet on me. Everybody will take all my stuff because I'm so kind and caring. I give it all away. No, it's not like that. You don't have to be stupid to be kind and to be caring. You know when things are being done for wrong reasons. If somebody else is just self-centered and they're trying to use you in some way that is dysfunctional, you just say no. Don't accept it. Don't take it. Don't do it. And if you have to leave and go someplace else, do that. Or if you have to ask them to leave and go someplace else, do that. So you don't have to be stupid. You can tell when things are good and when things are not good, when people are just in need or people are trying to take advantage. That's pretty obvious after a while. Mm-hmm. And if it takes you a while before that becomes obvious, well, then that's okay. That's the price of education. All right, I got in this, I gave and gave to it, and it didn't work out because that other person just wasn't capable. Oh, well, smarter now. Now I understand, then why was I misled? Why didn't I see that? What was it about me that didn't notice that that's the way it was going until, a year later? Why didn't I figure that out in the first week? And then you'll learn something. So each relationship, whether it turns out good or turns out bad, will be educational. You'll learn. You'll get better. So you see, you don't have to worry about being used. If somebody's clever enough to use you and you don't notice it, well, that's educational. You're going to learn something from that relationship and you'll be better for it. You'll grow up. So it's, if you are caring and loving and you are positive, there's just no downside. There's not really a downside. Okay, people use you, well, you learn and you don't put up with it. As soon as you get to the point that you feel, you're just being used by somebody who's very self-centered, well, you stop that. Or if you enjoy their company enough anyway, you let them say, well, that's okay. So I'll be used that way. That's okay. I enjoy the relationship. It's fine. I don't mind that if they, do this or do that. It's okay. So in that point, you don't any longer see it as a problem. The problem disappears. So you see, there's really no downside to it. Everything will always be positive and work out. So once you get that idea, then it's easier to have courage to move into something new because, all you have to do is do it right and it'll all work out fine.
Or do the best you can, whatever that definition of right is.
Right. Do it as right as you can. And everything will work out. And if it doesn't work out, well, you'll learn and you'll grow and you'll be better. So the next one comes along, you'll be a lot wiser because of that. So in any case, it's going to be good, whether it works the way you want or if it doesn't work the way you want. So you see, where's the downside? It's not really there. So just by changing your perspective and attitude, you end up being positive and learning and growing, and everything works great for you. Even when you have hardship sometimes, that becomes okay too. So there's no downside to caring about other. People will not use you as a doormat unless you allow them to. And and if it happens because they snuck up on you and you weren't aware, well, learn something. It sounds really easy, doesn't it? It sounds
really.
It sounds really, really easy. Well, sure, okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, it sounds very easy, but it isn't easy. Growing up is hard, but it's definitely worth it. So wherever you are now, that's where you have to start from. So from now you start. And from then on, everything will either be educational or terrific. Mm-hmm. Those are the only two choices. So here you are, start now. and just try very hard not to be self-centered. If you're self-centered, then you're not caring about others. You're just caring about yourself. If you're self-centered, then your happiness depends on other people, what they do, how they act, how they are, what they become. Because only when they are the way you want them can you be happy. You see, now your happiness depends on other people. Well, that's not good because you can't control other people. They just are as they are. But when you aren't self-centered, then your happiness only depends on yourself. You see, so you can generate all the happiness and positivity that you want when you're not self-centered.
The hard one that people kind of, it's like we say, we aren't in control of anybody else or anything that's around us or anything that's happening. We aren't in control. The only thing we can be is in charge of how we respond to it, each situation. And people get so caught up and it's like, well, but this will make me happy. It's like, no, that doesn't make you happy. Happiness comes from inside. It's not that. It's not the person. It's not the money. It's not, we get so caught up in that. And I guess it's because, I don't know, I think we were just taught that. I mean, everything seems to be so external instead of internal.
Yeah. Well, when you have the idea that if I'm self-centered and if I get the things I want, I'll be happy. But the thing is, you never run out of wants. No matter what you get, there'll still be things you want because you're self-centered and it's still about you. So just because you're self-centered, it's always going to be about you, which means there's always going to be things that you need out in the outside world that need to be in a way that make you happy. So all of your happiness becomes very short-lived because you never run out of things you need the outside world to do to make you happy. They just, you can have, $40 billion in the bank and it doesn't make you happy. It just makes you wealthy. Wealthy isn't happy. There's still things you want. And even if you get those things, you see, you're not going to you won't get the things that truly make you happy because doesn't work that way. When you're self-centered, getting things only make you happy for a short time, superficially. They make your ego happy, basically. So you get a little bit of happiness out of that, but then it goes right back to the way it was. You can't.
You would
get
always
there.
want more. Your ego always wants more, no matter what.
Right. Your ego always needs, some more service or another present, because, okay, well, I have a lot of presents now, but I have a lot of services, but now I'm still feeling unworthy. I'm not feeling special. So I need another service and I need another present. See, and you never run out of that because of your need is the problem. You get rid of that need for the service, that need to feel special and feel special because you are special, because you're you and you're positive and you're happy and you're caring, and that makes you special, you see. So, yeah, it's real obvious when you look at it, of where the problems are and where the solutions are. But it's one of these things that's just hard to do. You have to keep working on it and you have to change yourself. And changing yourself is a hard thing to do. So for those people that don't want to do it if it's too hard, well, they're going to have a hard time making any significant changes. But if you're banging your head against the wall, expecting to get on the other side of the wall, well, then you have to know it's time to quit. Just like if you're giving into a situation and then you realize that situation's abusive. Oh, this is an abusive situation. Well, then it's like banging your head against the wall. You say, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going to change it. I won't do that anymore. So you have to know when to hold them and when to fold them, right? You have to know how to make your choices. And if you make them based on fear, you'll almost always make the wrong choice If you make them based on love, you'll most always make the right choice. And if you happen to make a wrong choice, you'll learn from it and it'll turn into a right choice.
Yeah.
Easy.
Oh, yeah. Totally easy. I'm just thinking of the poor abused woman who then goes, well, but I can't leave because the fear of the unknown. But then I'll be alone. Then I won't have anything. And then what will that teach my children? It's like, really? That's the one that always bothers me the most. It's like you're miserably unhappy. You guys are both fighting all the time, but you're staying because you're sacrificing for your kids. Does that really send the message we want?
Yeah.
Like, do you really want that message? So your kids are going to do the same thing for their kids and et cetera and et cetera. Is that really the place to draw the line? Because it just feels so...
That is not saving the kids. That's damaging the kids.
Yeah. So they're listening to their parents yell all the time. It's like, well, yes, it's all about ego, and yes, there's self-centeredness there, but it's like, wow, it's the messages we give or the messages we want to give. They just seem outdated. From my parents' generation, they never left their jobs, right? They would stick with the same job all the time, whether they were happy or not. And it's like, we want to change. We change everything. It's sure we might find a job that we love all of our lives, but it's rare unless you're self-employed. But
if we take the example of two people and they're both very self-centered, so they fight all the time because they each one want the other to change to be the way they want. Well, the children, of course, like you say, will be damaged by that, and they'll tend to do that when they grow up and become adults. They'll model that same kind of behavior. And let's say one of those parents say, oh, well, I'll just go. I won't stay here for the children. I'll take the children, or I'll leave the children, or whatever. Well, now you have a single parent who's very self-centered raising the children.
Right.
That's still not going to work out very well. You see, it's not like if you break that and have one self-centered person raising the children, all right, they don't have all the fighting anymore, but they're still being raised by a self-centered parent. And it's still not going to be very good. The point is that if you're self-centered, you will tend to pass that to your children. You will tend to not show them what love is like. They won't have any idea about it. They'll think the way life is that you go out into the world and take everything you can take, and that will be their attitude. Well, that puts them in a hole. Now they have to outgrow that before they can begin moving in a positive space. And it's because you're self-centered is the problem. And the only way to help those children is to not be so self-centered. That's what you have to change. Now, let's say that you have two people who are very self-centered, and the kids are miserable, and they're miserable, and everybody's miserable in this family, a very dysfunctional family. And let's say magically we could take one of those parents and make them not self-centered. We could just take one of them and say, okay, magic wand, now you are a giving, loving, caring, high-quality person. Everything would change immediately. The children now would have a good role model. The children now would see that there is love and caring, and that's a possibility. Not only a possibility, but it feels good, and it's a good way to be. And there wouldn't be all the fighting anymore because, one person would refuse to fight. The other ones say, yeah, but you should have done that. You should have done this. And they'd say, okay, yes, sorry, I'll try to do it better next time. Or, well, that's the way it is. So one person would always be grumpy. The other person would be happy. And the children would just tend to hang out with the happy parent, whether it was mom or dad, wouldn't matter, and kind of tiptoe around the unhappy parent. You see, so it's not like both people have to change. Just one is all it takes. But for one person to change and stay, with a person who's very self-centered, they have to be very grown. They have to be such that when they get the negativity, when they get the insults, or when they get that stuff, it doesn't bother them. It doesn't upset them. It doesn't push their buttons. They just accept that, and it's the way they are, and it's okay. You see? And the other person, the self-centered person, they would just be frustrated because they couldn't start a fight. They can't get the other person to join them in their anger. You see? So they then tend to be quiet because it's not working anymore, in the sense that, you know, what's the point of insulting somebody if that doesn't insult them? You see, if they refuse to be insulted because it really doesn't insult them, they just take it and figures, well, that's the way they are, you know, and they're not insulted. Well, then you might as well just be quiet. So what happens is that the abusive parent then starts to grow up. You see, because there's no point anymore. So either, you know, they begin to grow up, or at least be quiet and stop, you know, making such a big fuss about their negativity, which makes them better. So you can create that growing situation for somebody else if you just change yourself. So it makes everything better. You know, there isn't one person fights. You know, one person fights don't take place. So it takes two to fight. So all you have to do, you don't have to say, well, I'm in this terrible situation, so I have to get out of it or nothing will change. No, you can change yourself. It's not your situation that's the problem. It's you are the problem. Okay. Now, if this other person decides they're going to start slapping you and, you know, and doing things like that, well, then it's time to go on, you know.
No, sure.
Then that's not something to put up with. Then it's time to go someplace else, or make them go someplace else. But it's growing up is kind of the solution for almost all the problems that you might encounter. All you have to do is let go of that self-centeredness, become other-centered, and your life will get better. And acting it may help you become it, but many people act it, and then that's as far as they get. They just act it. And because they're acting it, they're building up resentment at the same time. Well, I'm being nice, you know, and they're not. And that's just not fair, you know, so they start building up resentment. And that's probably worse in the long run, because then that builds up until it explodes. And that's not such a good situation. But the fake it until you make it sometimes works if you really are focused on making it. But if that's just a tactic you're using, that only will work in the short term. It won't work in the long term. You can't live your life faking it, or at least not be very happy. You have to be it. You have to not have those buttons. You have to have that insult just doesn't faze you. It's just in one ear, out the other, and you just don't react to it in a negative way. All right, somebody just insulted me. You realize it's not about you. It's about them. It's their problem, not your problem. So you don't react to it in any kind of a negative way. Let them deal with that in any way they deal with it. And they're stuck with somebody who won't fight, you know, who won't join in that negative bashing, and makes them stop too and look around. So nothing can come of being positive and being loving except good. And nothing can come of being self-centered and being negative but bad. So it's just the nature of the reality that we're in. That's the core thing in this reality, is to grow up, become love. So you're either with the program and succeeding, or you're struggling and unhappy.
Life.
Life, yeah.
Well,
yeah, so
it's been an interesting show, I think, Tom. It's a good one. I think you've given us lots to think about, for sure. It kind of went off in different areas, but it's all really about the same thing. And I think, you know, again, it's all about love and growing, and change will happen if that's what you want. If it's meant to be change. Not that it's not difficult, but that it
takes courage to change.
Yeah.
You have to have courage to change, but courage comes to you automatically, and you have lots of courage when you're positive. It's hard to scrounge up courage when you're negative and look at all the things that could go wrong. But if you just look at the things and say, well, things could go wrong, but I'll deal with them when I get there. That's not a problem. I can deal with things that are wrong. So when you're positive, then courage comes more easily.
All right. You've been listening to News for the Heart. We've been getting the heart of what matters with Tom Campbell. And we'll be back next month. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Laurie.